At FIE, we're not just
students
and faculty.
We're not only learners
and lecturers.
We are expanding minds,
Expanding futures.
We're redefining the classroom.
We are life-changing.
eye-opening. We are a community
Driven by our values.
That wants you.
You.
Yes, you.
To join.
Hello and welcome to In the Field, a podcast from FIE, where we will be exploring all things study abroad. I'm Dr Heidi James Dunbar, writer in residence and senior faculty, and I will be your host. Joining me today is Dr Grahaeme Hesp. Grahaeme is FIE's Senior Director of Institutional Relations and is based in the Metro St Louis area. Grahaeme has a Master of Business Administration from Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and a Doctorate of Education from the Florida State University. After graduating, Grahaeme moved into the Kimmel Leadership Center and then moved to Elon University and Davidson College, both in North Carolina. During his time at the Florida State University, he worked in the Hardy Center for Leadership and Ethics in Higher Education, edited the Journal of College and Character, and worked with the Institute on College Student Values. After leaving Florida, Grahaeme was Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life at the University of California, Berkeley, one of the oldest fraternity-sorority communities in the US. Most recently, Grahaeme was Director of Academics for FIE's London operation. As Senior Director of Institutional Relations, Grahaeme is responsible for partner relationship management and new programme development, as well as FIE's corporate partnerships. Grahaeme also serves as the US contact for the Conflict and Struggle for Peace Summertime Programme, which is the topic of our discussion today. Welcome, Grahaeme. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to talk about one of my most favorite programs that we offer.
Well, with that in mind, tell me more. Can you tell me something about how this really pretty unique and special program started? What was its inspiration?
So I've done some hunting, and I truly believe that this is the only program like it in the world. And we'll go into some of the specifics and the details. So the program initially ran for the first year in 2011, and it's really grounded in FIE's founding values. So very much the way the world is going today with conflict and disagreement, we really wanted to develop a program to help students grow into global citizens, which is a core feature of study abroad in and of itself, but also the cross-cultural engagement piece and leading to better understanding and appreciation of others. And so that's why we wanted to build a program that could really put our values into action. And I think over the last 14 or so years the program's been running, that we've been able to do that.
Yeah, that's really quite precious, isn't it? So tell me more about how the program works. It starts in Dublin, is that right?
Correct. So starts in Dublin, and we do a course called The Life Cycle of Peace and Conflict, Lessons Learned in Northern Ireland. And so that is the core program. You're only in the Republic of Ireland for about 2 weeks. So it is a very academically rigorous program. So there is some reading to do before the course actually begins, before you arrive into Dublin. But we look at the history of Ireland. So obviously part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and we start off sort of in the 1880s. We very much are using Dublin as the classroom. And so typically we'll go to Glasnevin Cemetery and we'll see the grave sites and hear of some of those original independent movement people. So Fianna Fáil, Fianna Gael, and hearing about what they were doing in the 1880s. During a walking tour of the city of Dublin, we actually end up at the General Post Office, which is still in existence, still is a post office today, but we see the bullet holes in the walls of the post office because this is where the original 1916 uprising, where they finally retreated before being beaten by the British. We also go to Kilmainham Jail, which is where those people from the 1916 uprising were taken and then end up in the courtyard where they faced a firing squad.
Oh my God.
So we learn a lot of that history of the independence movement. And obviously that leads up to partition in the 1920s when the Republic of Ireland was created as an independent country. And then Northern Ireland remains to this day part of the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the piece in Dublin. But then as part of that understanding, we then move countries to Northern Ireland.
Right.
And now you're in the United Kingdom, and now you're dealing with British pounds. So we start off oftentimes just across the border, and the name in and of itself sums up what is still happening today. And so the town of Derry/Londonderry, and you would learn on the course why we still have that slash in its name. We have met before with the Orange Men, who are the Protestants who still support British rule. That we also go to the Bloody Sunday Museum, which is where the new Bloody Sunday, so in the 1960s, where the British fired on protesters in the 1960s, killing several people. And that's what led to the modern day troubles that many people know from the 60s through the 90s.
Yeah.
We typically then also do an absolutely amazing experience called the Theatre of Witness. And so that when I was there in 2016, we actually had a representative from the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, and then also a representative from the Ulster Unionists, so those supporting the British, who were two of the paramilitary, some might say, terrorist organizations on either side, and then also a woman. And these three people now go around and have conversations and talk about why they joined the IRA or the Ulster Unionists, what their roles were. And it was very much oftentimes as a teenager, and they were led to believe they were fighting for their rights and their freedoms. And now over the years have come to realize what that actually means and how they are more alike than what they were led to believe. The woman in the middle has a fascinating story because it was one Monday night, 9 p.m., the doorbell rang, her husband went to answer the door, and all she heard was the gunshot.
Oh, no.
And of course, by the time she got to the door, her husband is there lying, if not dead, then certainly dying. And so these three now help explain that by getting to know each other and having these conversations, how much alike they are and how much they really didn't quite understand what it was they were fighting for. We then also end up in Belfast,
Right.
where the city was actually divided. Most people don't realize, very much like Berlin during the Cold War. There was a wall that divided the Protestant area from the Catholic area. And at dusk every night, the gates between these areas of town would close to prevent people from getting through and potentially causing any sort of uprising or trouble. And there was a thought at the time to knock these down now that we've moved forward with the Good Friday Peace Accords that were brokered with a lot of help from US President Bill Clinton. But now they've decided to keep them up in a similar way that Berlin has much of the Berlin Wall in place as a memory as to what happened over those 30, 40 years, 60s to 90s.
That's incredible. So students are getting this really nuanced and in-depth understanding of all these different histories and how we've come through all of this to the peace accord, the Good Friday Agreement. And then from there, I mean, it doesn't end there, right? From there, they then go to Jordan.
Correct. So what we're doing with that lessons learned in Northern Ireland is truly what worked. Where are some of the challenges that could still exist today? So, for example, an ongoing challenge is there is no border between the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland. So when the UK voted to leave the European Union, now what did that mean? Because Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom outside of the EU, but the Republic of Ireland is part of the EU. And so there were challenges and trouble with, well, what happened if we were bringing chickens in from mainland United Kingdom into Northern Ireland, and then there were no customs barriers to bring them into the Republic of Ireland, which could then potentially go to the rest of Europe. So there are still some of those challenges that are out there. We also bring in a little bit about South Africa, because South Africa, when they got full independence and overrode apartheid, they developed what's known as peace and reconciliation. And so they did a process whereby they would go out and prosecute people, put them on trial, put them in prison for various roles they may have had on either side from the apartheid regime. The Good Friday Peace Accord in Ireland very much did a different system. And so, in effect, they drew a line in the sand and said, whatever happened in the past is the past. And we are only going to look forward to a positive future. So the students now have two different ways of approaching peace. So now, and included in the price, we fly over to Amman, Jordan, in the Middle East. The students now do the second course, which is Humanity and the Future in the Wake of Peace and Uprising. And so are there lessons we can learn from the Irish peace process, from peace and reconciliation in South Africa, that we could apply across the Middle East? But we look beyond the Arab-Israeli conflict. We also look into interregional conflict and intertribal conflict. So, for example, we also, again, it's not a history course, but we have to understand where we came from. So we do a little bit of history and understand the likes of Sykes-Picot, where the French and the British got together in London and basically got a map out and drew nice straight lines to create the Middle East as we somewhat know it today, and also most of Africa. And that's why most of these countries have perfectly straight lines, because they got a ruler out and just drew the lines. But that also explains why a somewhat relatively modern new country like Afghanistan has the history of troubles that it does. Because when the British and French created the country, they put together warring tribes who had been fighting each other for thousands and thousands of years and said, and now you have to get along because you're now all the country of Afghanistan. Whereas they then placed maybe a tribe you'd been trading with for thousands of years. Oh, that's now in Iraq, or that's now somewhere else. But that's now a different country, so you can't trade with them easily because now you've got a country line dividing you. And so that's where we look beyond what most people will think about when you hear about the Middle East, the Arab-Israeli conflict, but we look at those extra conflicts as well.
Yeah, those far more intricate and intertwined, interconnected relationships that aren't so simple to just unpick and then remake, you know.
Absolutely. And that's part of the problem with Jerusalem, for example, is 5,000 years of history, pretty much Arabs, Muslims, and Christians all have a claim to the city of Israel. So there will never really be an easy solution to say, oh, Jerusalem becomes part of Israel, or Jerusalem becomes part of the West Bank, because it's not an easy answer.
And what the program is trying to do is really highlight that and how all of these different moving pieces, these really very sensitive often too, come together. It's not so simple as to just draw lines on a map and tell people this is where you belong now and this is who you trade with now and here is a new name for you.
Absolutely. And we've got some history within the program as well of having those conversations, and we try to use first-hand experience as well. So some of the faculty that we've used in the past have been involved in the Good Friday peace negotiations.
Incredible.
Were involved in South Africa. One of our faculty in the past in Jordan was actually involved in the negotiations between the Kingdom of Jordan and the State of Israel, which ultimately led to Jordan recognizing the State of Israel. And he actually went on to be the first ambassador from the Kingdom of Jordan inside Israel. When I was with the students in the program, we actually went to the Israeli embassy and sat down and had conversations with the Israeli ambassador. And of course, the students were asking some absolutely amazing, hard, in-depth questions. And we're getting more and more frustrated by her answers. And when we left the embassy and unpacked the experience, I had to make them understand that she is a representative of the country of Israel. And it doesn't matter what her thoughts or her opinions are. She can only ever give the official line of the government at the time. And so no matter how many ways and how different they asked the questions, they just kept getting the same answers, which are the sound bites we still hear today about the right of Israel to protect itself and the right of determination as an independent country and all of this sort of thing. And the concept is getting to know the people as opposed to official government sound bites or what we see on the media either in the UK or in North America.
So invaluable experience for students, like actually speaking to people who are part of this process.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating about the Jordanian piece as well is the vast majority, in fact, I don't think we've had a single student not do this. The vast majority of students are in homestays. Right. So they're getting to experience true Jordanian culture firsthand. Now, an interesting aside, most of the men, most, if not all of the men on the program, will actually be placed with Christian families, and most of the women will be placed with Muslim Arabic families. And the reason for that is, depending on the extent of the beliefs of the Muslim family, when you come home from work or from shopping or whatever it is that you've done for the day, you want to be able to relax. And if you are wearing a hijab, the headscarf, then you want to be able to take it off and relax and watch television.
Mm-hmm.
Except you can't do that in front of a non-family member male.
Right.
And so for that reason, if we had men in a Muslim family household, those women probably would not be able to fully relax during the time. So there's an interesting little dynamic there. But another aside that I was fascinated with, and that I really had to ask in-depth questions. So when we were there, we had a driver driving us around and taking us to locations. And of course, over the time that we were visiting with the students, we got to know him and were able to ask some questions. Transpired he has 4 daughters, and 2 of them at the time were quite young, but the other 2, I think, were 16 and 18. And so I asked him, I said, do you have them wearing a hijab or a burqa or anything like that? And he replied, one does and one doesn't. And I just looked at him, I said, how does that work? And he said, when they turn 16, I sit them down with the Quran, I tell them to have a meeting with the imam, and then ultimately the decision is between them and their God. And one has decided to wear a hijab and one has decided not to. I said, so you haven't told them, you didn't impose, you didn't say, this is what you must do? And he said, absolutely not. That's not my decision. That's their decision in discussion with their God. And I said, that is not what we ever see in the Western media. We see a very male-dominated culture where the women are subjugated. And not to say that I'm sure that happens, but certainly our firsthand experience was not that that's what was happening. So now the students are getting that firsthand experience. They're questioning political sound bites. They're questioning what they see on the media. And so it really is far-reaching beyond just solve the Middle East problem, but it's now causing them to question what their beliefs may be, and certainly what they are seeing on the media.
Yeah, those received messages. And this is really what study abroad or any real valuable travel is about, isn't it? It's interpersonal, person to person, those connections, seeing each other for who we are as whole people, not these stereotypes delivered to us by the media or...
Absolutely. And I think you see that firsthand. In Amman, there is a very modern steel and glass multi-story shopping mall. And you'll see Jordanian women, some of them walking around in a full burqa, head to toe. Some may have a hijab on. Some you might as well be in downtown New York or central London, the way they are dressed.
Yeah.
And they're all just walking around shopping. And again, not something you necessarily see portrayed in Western media.
No, absolutely. No, but one of the things you were saying is that you've traveled there with the students. Were there any particular highlights for you? What really stood out for you as an exciting and valuable part of the experience?
So I had not heard of this location. So we went to the ancient Roman city of Jerash, which is just a little bit outside of Amman. And basically, it had been a little bit like sort of Egypt, had been buried under the sand for 1,000 years. So it was very much protected. And over the years, they have cleared it away. And you walk through it as a Roman town. There are the probably 5-story stone gates to get into the town. You then walk along the cobbled road. You can actually look down through basically a Roman manhole cover and see the underground sewers. You'll see the circus. You'll see the meeting areas, and it's all still there. So, and then you turn and look the other direction, and there is the town of modern day Jerash, just sitting right on the edge of the Roman town. Obviously, an amazing highlight is getting to see the even older Nalbandian city of Petra. And it truly is eye-opening to walk through the cut of the stone, and then you come across the treasury, that famous piece that everyone knows about for Petra, but easily to spend a full day there. Obviously, life-changing experience to swim in the Dead Sea. Our students get the opportunity to do that, and that is probably the first time you actually get to see Israel, because just across the other side of the Dead Sea, there is the country of Israel. And that's part of our biblical Jordan tour. So we start going back 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years there. But so many amazing, fascinating experiences.
It sounds brilliant. And the students have the option to learn Arabic too while they're there, right?
Correct. So the core program is 5 weeks, 3 different countries, 2 courses, and so 6 semester credits would come back into their home campus. But then the students have the option of staying in Jordan for an additional 4 weeks and doing 2 more courses of Arabic. And so we do a mixture of colloquial Jordanian Arabic and also modern standard Arabic as well. And students have the option of choosing either beginner Arabic, intermediate Arabic, all the way up to advanced Arabic. And I will say I sat in on a beginner Arabic, and it was very much like a kindergarten class. They had little phrases written out on pieces of paper, and they had to move the pieces of paper to make a grammatically correct sentence. I could do that. I could understand that. I then sat in the advanced Arabic class, and I don't think they said a word of English in the entire hour of the class. So yeah, students can stay on, and if you do that, then it becomes a 9-week summertime program, and then 12 US credits, which is basically a full US semester, is available and would come back to the home campus.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, incredible in terms of the life experience, let alone what you're also taking back in terms of credits. It's extraordinary. Now, I want to ask. I hope this doesn't seem too reductive, but I as a faculty member, but also as a parent, of course, we are ensuring absolute safety in both countries, all 3 countries, right? So that's not something to be worried about.
Absolutely. And so we have an on-the-ground partner in Jordan that is Ahmed East. They are based in Washington, D.C., and they have been working in the Middle East and North Africa since the 1950s. And so they have a lot of very close relationships with the U.S. State Department in Washington, D.C., but also with the U.S. Embassy in Jordan. I think it's important for people to understand that, and again, this is where the media portrays an image of the Middle East. The US State Department has a traffic light system, which is sort of rating from 1, absolutely safe, very nothing to worry about, all the way up to a level 4. Ireland is level 1. Really couldn't get any safer than that. Most of Western Europe, so London, Paris, Italy, are level 2. Jordan is level 2 as well. And so I regularly have conversations with parents expressing those concerns. So I get to say, I've been there, I've experienced it, I've seen it, and I probably felt safer in Jordan than in many places in Western Europe.
Mm.
But then I also get them to understand that the US State Department has ranked Jordan the same as most of Western Europe. And so then I put the onus on the parents. Would you let your daughter go to Paris to do a study abroad? Would you let your son go to Rome to do a study abroad? Would it be okay if your child came to London and studied with FIE?
Mhm.
And typically the answers are, of course I would. And so then I say, so the US State Department has Jordan at that exact same level. So if you have no concerns about your child going to Western Europe, you shouldn't have any concern with your child going to Jordan as well.
No, no, that makes absolute sense. Thank you. So I want to ask you one final question, and it's from your experiences and talking with students who've experienced this program themselves, what would you say is that like the most valuable thing they're taking away from this program?
Well, I think for one thing, it's fascinating to see the range of majors. So yes, we have a lot of international relations, international diplomacy, peace studies, these sort of majors. But then we also have, when I was there with the students, there was an econ major who just liked the look of the program. The current marketing postcard that we use for the program has a student from DePaul University in Indiana, and he was an accountancy major. And he just loved the look and the feel of the program. And in fact, he still to this day is convinced that he got his job as an accountant because of this program. In Study Abroad, we talk about differentiating yourself. And I think Evan is a prime example. Of course, everyone interviewing for that job was going to be able to do accountancy.
Mhm.
Everyone either already had or was about to take the CPA exam. So what made him different? And all they talked about in his job interview was our peace and conflict program. And so this made him stand out. And so, yes, we have had students who go into the US Foreign Service, work for the State Department. We have had students go in to the CIA. We've interestingly had non-traditionally aged students who are veterans who have said to me, I want to do this program because I want to go back to the Middle East, but see it from a different perspective than when I was there with the US Army.
Mhm.
And so it really, a lot of it is about self-awareness and understanding. And when I was there, it was this same sort of cycle. It was a US election. And there were lots of conversations about how the media was portraying the Middle East, what would be happening in the next few months as we built up to election day.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of it for the students was their personal awareness, their growth, their willingness to question what they were being told. I'm sure not even 3/4 of them have gone into a peace, international relations, diplomacy role. But every single student since we began offering the program in 2011 is now more aware, more cross-culturally engaged, and I think more appreciates the piece of difference that makes them a better global citizen.
And what could be more extraordinary and important than that?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for telling me all about this. It's absolutely fascinating. I loved hearing about it. I want to go, actually.
It is I don't say this lightly, but it is a life-changing experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Graeme. Thank you.
Thank you.
learn more about our faculty courses and programmes, visit our website www.fie.org.uk. And if you've enjoyed this episode, check out our others wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. FIE provides life-changing study abroad experiences in the UK, Ireland and Spain. As a non-profit educational organisation, we are passionately invested in making a difference for our students as the future global leaders of tomorrow and the field of international education as a whole. The FIE podcast is a creative and academic space for exploring everything, the people, the places and opportunities that make their experience so valuable and exciting. Thank you for joining us.
FIE. We're here to help you
Unlock a wider
brighter future.